everybody. Welcome back to the Throwing Partners podcast. It's Kirby and Joseph here. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And also, you can follow us on our socials at KirbyD4 and at JAguilar7891. Joe, it's been a wild week here in Major League Baseball. The Astros showed a little life at the end of the week, and the Braves continued their run of domination. But before we get into that, Joe, we agreed that we wanted to discuss what exactly the standings look like right now compared to our predictions. And for the most part, so far, so good. So go ahead and start us off, Joe.
All right, well, I'm going to start off with the AL East, and we're going to run this down. So we got the Yankees coming up front, 19-10. They've gotten off to a hot start, like I believed they would. They've been led by a pretty dominant offense with Juan Soto, carrying much of the load with Aaron Judge struggling, and their pitching has been pretty solid so far, even without Garrett Cole. Carlos Rodon has been pretty good. And Nestor Cortez has come back strong from an injury-riddled season last year. So, I think they can look forward to being one of the premier teams in the league, for the rest of the season. And you have the Orioles at 17-10. The baby birds, they're continuing to kill it. I know that they just dropped the series to the A's, but they'll bounce back from that, and they're going to have a balanced offensive approach with Gunnar Henderson, Adley Rutschman, Cedric Mullins. So they're going to look to continue their winning ways. And then you got the Red Sox in third, going 16-13. They've been really carried by Tyler O'Neill so far, who's had a crazy offensive season to start the year. He's going gangbusters, and I think it's a matter of time before he cools off, because I don't know if that's sustainable, but it's been pretty cool to see him go on the kind of run that he has so far. And then you got the Blue Jays and Rays. Both teams have kind of been a little bit disappointing. They've both gotten off to slow starts. The Rays aren't playing their brand of baseball. They're in last place, and the Blue Jays are coming in fourth. And neither team is playing up to their expectations, which is kind of interesting to see. It's a tough division, so I think that their hopes are now kind of in the wild card, even though it's still early. I don't think that the Yankees and Orioles will let up unless catastrophic injuries happen to both teams. So I think the Rays and the Blue Jays kind of just have to get back on track to their brand of baseball, and find a way to make some noise going, into the remainder of the season. And then we have the AL Central. Moving on, we have the Guardians, who are the best team in the AL with a record of 19-9. They've had their fair share of pitching injuries, and a lot of people can kind of look at their rotation and see that the numbers are kind of inflated for their staff, which isn't necessarily a good thing. They've been winning a lot of their games because of their offense, which is a little bit different than we've seen them in the past. They've kind of changed up their formula from years past, and they're going with a more offense-centric approach, which has been leading them to 19 wins. And then you have the Royals, who have come on the scene hot. They're a really young team. A lot of the moves that they made last offseason and during the trade deadline last year have really, come to a head. And, they're being led by Bobby Witt Jr. and Salvador Perez with a really good pitching staff. Their pitching staff has been phenomenal. I believe in the last, their bullpen has been extremely good as well. I'm not going to throw out a stat because I don't know it off the top of my head, but I heard a crazy stat about their bullpen giving up almost near to nothing in the last couple of weeks. So look out for them to make some noise this year, be contenders at the trade deadline, and maybe make some moves that can elevate them to the next level. And then you got the Tigers at 16-12. They've been playing really good as well. You got the Twins at 14 and 13. They've been injury riddled as well. I know that Carlos Correa and I believe Royce Lewis are both out right now, which are really big parts of their lineup. And if it's not Royce Lewis, it's someone else who I can't remember at the moment. But I know that they're missing two key guys right now, so that's kind of hampering them right now. And then the White Sox coming in at 16 and 22, who actually won 3 games or had a sweep this weekend. So they are in the basement. I can't really talk right now because of the way the Astros are playing, but their season isn't looking too good. They were off to a historically bad start, and they're just looking to probably sell at the deadline. I know it's still early. A lot of things can happen, but they're probably going to be sellers, and they're probably going to let go of guys like Michael Kopech and Luis Robert. So
Tommy Pham as well.
Yeah, Tommy Pham, who I believe was recently picked up from them and has kind of given them a little bit of a boost so far.
Yeah.
But then you have the AL West. You got the Mariners at 15 and 13. You got the Rangers at 15 and 14. You got the Athletics at 12 and 17, and you've got the Angels at 10 and 18, and you've got the Astros bringing it up the rear at 9 and 19. Okay, so I'm going to go team by team for the AL West and kind of just give their positioning so far. The Mariners are leading the division at they've been pitching really well. And the offense, once again, has gotten off to that slow start that I was talking about at the beginning of the year. I believe that the Mariners pitching staff, the starting pitching staff, has in the last 16 games given up 15 runs combined as a starting rotation, which is insane. That it's really crazy number. The Rangers, they've been dominant again offensively. They're a half game back at 15 and 14. Their pitching continues to be a struggle for them, but with that offense, they've hung around. I believe they lost a series to the Mariners last week, so they need to kind of, if they want to really cement themselves as a real contender, they're going to need to take care of business within the division, because so far I believe that they have not played well within the division against the Astros and the Mariners now. And then you've got the Athletics at 12 and 17, 3.5 games back. Not a lot of people thought the Athletics were going to be very good this year again, for the third straight year. But so far to start the season, they've kind of handled their business. They've played some really tough teams, and they've hung around. They just took a series from Baltimore, in Baltimore, and it's pretty interesting to see how their season is going to shape out. With all of the controversies surrounding them and their move to Las Vegas, or their move to San Jose for the meantime before they move to Vegas. It's going to be really interesting to see. Sacramento is where they're moving, not San Jose. But it's going to be really interesting to see how their season shapes out, because they've got a couple nice pieces, for their future, that are producing right now. So it'll be interesting to see how their season shapes out. And then you've got the Angels, who are at 10 and 18, 5 games back. I think that they're probably falling a little bit, back down to earth after their, decent start. They were leading the division for, I believe, a week, and now they've kind of, like I said, come back down to earth. And only 5 games back at 10 and 18. And then you've got the Astros, 9 and 19. They got swept by the Cubs this week, but they did get a 2-game series sweep against the Rockies in Mexico City, and are currently 6 games back. Joe Espada came out and said that after the sweep from the Cubs, that he gave a little speech to the team, trying to get them prepared, and kind of getting the team to reset their mentality, using Mexico City and that experience, representing MLB on the world stage, as a opportunity to reset the season and kind of get back on track. And they came out and they mashed the ball. They hit well with runners in scoring position in 2 back-to-back games, probably for the first time all season. So hopefully they can build on that. Hopefully they can really use this series as a stepping stone to play more consistently offensively for the remainder of the season. Because, like I said at the beginning of the season, I do believe that this starting lineup for the Astros, these 9 offensive players, could be one of the best lineups in baseball. And they've showed flashes, almost like once a week. But then they go on these stretches where they score 1 or 2 runs and they're losing 1-run games. So if they can use this series and build off of it, they've got a really tough stretch of games coming up. But if they can use this as a stepping stone, like I've been saying, and they can build off of it, then if they can just go on a good run, they can be in the playoffs. They're only 6 games back. The rest of the division hasn't really separated themselves, which I think could be a big mistake for them, not taking advantage of the Astros' early struggles. If they go on one of their crazy runs that I know that they're capable of, everybody knows that they're capable of, then it could be really dangerous for them coming down the stretch. But they have a stretch of games where they have the Guardians coming up. They have the Mariners, Yankees. They go to New York. They go to Detroit. And then they have a series against the A's, who I was just talking about. And then a series against the Brewers. And that gets you to mid-May. And with this stretch of games, we could either be talking about on May 19th, if the Astros are back or what pieces they'll be selling at the deadline. So I really think that this next few weeks has real implications for how the rest of the season turns out for them. And if you want to take it away for the NL side of things, I'd be more than happy to hear what your thoughts on how the NL divisions are coming along.
All right. Well, let me just say this. We both predicted the Dodgers to win the NL West, and so far their division has been very underwhelming. They're 18-12. They're on pace to win 97, 98 games. Their offense looks great, just like we expected. At least the first 4 guys, and including Teoscar too. I think he's done well. But then the bottom half still doesn't look great. But something I've still been looking at is Shohei still can't hit with runners on. He has absolutely 0 home runs with runners on base, and or at least runners in scoring.
Just like Altuve.
Yeah. The struggle continues for him. He's hitting 176 with runners in scoring position. The Giants under 500, and so is the rest of the division between the Padres, the Diamondbacks, and the Rockies. The Rockies are a bad team. They are not good. They're probably going to lose 110 games. So that's the NL West. The NL Central has actually been a lot more interesting than people thought. I picked the Cubs to win. Did you pick the Cubs to win? Is that who you picked, Joe?
I did pick the Cubs to win,
yeah.
But I picked the Reds to be in the wild card.
That's right. So right now, the Cubs actually sit a half game back of the division leader, being the Brewers. I wasn't sure that the Brewers were going to be good or not after they lost Corbin Burns, but they're sitting at 17-10. And William Contreras, man, he just looks like a top 5 NL MVP candidate. I hate that the Braves traded this guy, but their catching factory over there is just unreal. They really know what they're doing when it comes to developing catchers, and it's really shown with him.
With him and Gary Sanchez,
yes,
who hit a big home run off of Aroldis Chapman earlier this week.
They got a lot of guys with that dog in them, between Contreras and Sanchez and Rhys Hoskins and Willie Adames too. They got a lot of guys that are not afraid to go up and just swing it. The Reds are so fun to watch. They're 15-13. They're doing actually pretty well. I mean, that could put them at an 86, 88 win pace. And probably put them in a wild card contention, just like you were talking about, Joe. The Pirates.
De La Cruz has been a huge part. He's been killing it so far.
He is on this unreal pace where he could possibly have like 50 and 100, on homers and stolen bases, but also have like 220 Ks. It's obviously not sustainable, But I mean, I would love to see a back-to-back season of guys going 40-40. I
Yep.
don't know if that's in the cards for Ellie because he strikes out so much, and at some point he's probably going to cool off. But man, that would be awesome to see back-to-back 40-40 or better seasons. Um, and then moving on to the Pirates, if they would ever, uh, get their act together and call up Paul Skeens because he's literally just wasting bullets down there at AAA. They could probably be above 500 because he's actually absolutely just blowing guys away down there. And there's no reason he can't be doing that at this level either. And then the Cardinals are probably the most interesting one in the division. They're 13-15, and it seems like the Cardinal fan base is starting to crumble as well, because they're talking about selling and what they need to do, and why are we not good? Well, I can tell you why you're not good because your rotation's old. All right, Lance Lynn tried to tell you that they could eat up innings. Well, when you can't eat quality innings, you're not going to be very good. Even though he actually hasn't been horrible, they're just not playing well, and their stars are not playing like stars. So they kind of have some of the same issues that the Astros have had. But they're sitting at 13-15. The season's obviously not over for them yet. But seeing Cardinals country just kind of crumble is really interesting. And then you've got the NL East. We both predicted the Braves to win that division. But however, let me just say this. The Phillies are 19-10 right now. They actually lead all of baseball in quality starts. They've got 18 quality starts already this year. They've only played 29 games. That's over 2/3 of their starts are quality starts. Their bullpen hasn't been as good as people thought it was going to be. But if their bullpen can ever get right, they're really going to be dangerous. The Mets are 14-13. Most people agree that their ceiling was maybe 84 wins or so. Well, guess what? They're sitting right there at it. Now, the Nationals, on the other hand, are quite an interesting case. They're 13-14, but they're actually playing like they could be potentially better. Their trade deadline is going to be very interesting because they have some pieces they could move, or if they're above 500 at the trade deadline, maybe they add a piece or two and just try to go for a wild card push. CJ Abrams is somebody that in the back of my mind, I'm like, man, I wish Atlanta would go after this guy as the shortstop of the future. And he has absolutely looked like an MVP so far. I remember actually watching him working on one of the backfields at spring training. And, dude, he's just absolutely putting in work. He is an extremely hard worker, and he was really fun to watch on those backfields. And then you got the Marlins. They suck. There's no way around it. They suck, and they're hurt. They are 6-23. They're 14.5 back in the NL East, and I can say certainly that the NL East is over for them, and the wild card's probably over for them too. And to be honest with you, Joe, I don't even know if they have any pieces to trade, because I don't know what you want to get off the Marlins scrap heap right now, besides maybe a bullpen arm, or
I was gonna say
like there's nothing there to go get. So yeah, they maybe suck.
Jazz Chisholm.
That, to be honest with you, I think Jazz is overrated. I don't think Jazz is that great.
I mean, I don't either. But I mean, if someone wanted to make kind of an interesting move at the deadline, maybe they try to acquire him, see if they can, work with him to, I guess, up his game. But I don't know where his ceiling is at.
He can play second base. He can play center field. He can play shortstop. I mean, if anybody needs a second baseman at the trade deadline, I mean, why not try to maybe go get him? Who knows? So that's kind of how our division updates look. So far, our predictions are pretty close, with the exception of the Astros. But hopefully they can come around and kind of get it together, especially after this Mexico City series. Moving on, Joe. I sent you this question earlier, and it was between Ozuna from the Braves and Shohei $700 million Ohtani. And I said, who are you taking? Now, I actually did the side-by-side on Baseball Reference, and I want you to know it's quite interesting. Okay, first of all, this is through yesterday. This is not through today. It doesn't really matter anyway because both of them went 0 for 4 today. So these stats are actually going to look a little bit worse. Ohtani's played in 4 more games. So through today, Otani's played 30. Ozuna's played 26. Otani has more hits because he's played in more games. But when it comes to just about everything else, home runs, RBIs, batting average, on base percentage, slugging percentage, OPS, and OPS plus, Marcell Ozuna has absolutely been that guy. He is leading in every single one of those categories compared to the two of them. The only thing that Otani actually leads him in something that's comparable, is stolen bases. And that's because Marcell Ozuna runs literally like a big bear. Um, so I thought it was really interesting. Marcell Ozuna actually has a club option for next year. If he continues to play like this, Joe, I'm not going to be surprised if they actually don't pick up that option, but actually extend him past the 2025 season. I could see them possibly doing like a 2-year deal, kind of like what they did with Chris Sale, where they tack on another year to it, and for probably close to the same money, which I would be okay with at this point, because we're coming up on that May 1st timeline for him when he turned it around last year. And some of the things I've been seeing, I mean, he's set basically since that time period, second in home runs and RBIs to T-Mac Matt Olson. Which, if you would have told me that this time last year, I would have probably bet my life savings that wasn't going to happen. But here we are, and Marcell Ozuna has looked like an absolute stud. He's having quality at bats. He's taking more walks, and he is still absolutely smashing baseballs. This guy hits baseballs so freaking hard. It's unreal. And then once again, for all of the backlash that he got over the DV stuff and over the DUI stuff, this guy is a clubhouse leader. He has helped so many guys get back on track. Last year, it was Michael Harris. He straight up told him, dude, you're one of the best center fielders in the league, and I want you to play like it. Well, guess what? Michael Harris turned it around. This year, he's already talked to Travis d'Arnaud and said, dude, you got it in you, man. And Travis d'Arnaud goes out and hits 3 homers, and then another home run the next night. So it's really cool to see guys in the clubhouse have that impact on one another and truly want to see their success. So for me, I'm probably taking Ozuna all day. I'll eat those words at the end of the year if Otani ends up having the better season. But right now, I'm going to take Ozuna.
I mean, it's a really interesting comparison. I do think that Shohei is probably due for, I don't think that he'll continue to not be able to hit with runners in scoring position. Just like I don't believe that a lot of the players on the Astros, Jordan, Tucker, Altuve, Yiner, I don't believe that any of them will continue, to not be able to hit with runners in scoring position, considering the fact that when runners aren't on base, they're hitting the cover off the ball. It's very fascinating that you bring up Otani, just because I've seen so much of the Astros struggles with runners in scoring position. So he's also hitting the cover off the ball when there aren't runners on. So baseball is a game of averages, and he's bound to regress, or I mean not regress, but he's bound to get back to the average.
Water will always find its level, and he will get back
exactly
to doing that.
Exactly. He is a career, he's a good hitter throughout his entire career with runners in scoring position. The numbers are there. I believe he's a two-time MVP. Correct me if I'm wrong. And he didn't win that for no reason. He has a good stick. And so, he's bound to, start hitting with runners in scoring position, just like the Astros are. Now the Astros have dug themselves into a hole. Most of their hitters are part of the reason why they are 9-19. But Shohei Otani has a little bit more leeway, just because the Dodgers have gotten off to, the Dodgers start where they're playing good for the most part. So I'm sure that there's not a lot of pressure on him right now to really produce, but I'm sure that he'll get it back on track.
Definitely. Well, Joe, let me just say this: the Braves had a really nice week at home. They started off playing the Marlins, and then they played the Guardians, which was a really, really weird series. Um, they ended up sweeping the Marlins thanks to some really fantastic pitching. Let me just say this: the Braves played 6 games this week, and they went 5-1. They were 2 outs away today from having a quality start or better in every single game. Bryce Elder just went 5 1/3 today instead of going 6, which is fine. He actually pitched really well for the most part, except the few walks that he had. So the starting pitching has really turned around for Atlanta, which has been nice. Um, I think Wednesday it was Michael Harris. They actually had to go into extras with the Marlins, and he walked us off, which was really great. That was a 4-3 win. And then today, Austin Riley was the hero. He walked us off also in a 4-3 win. Now, here's what I'm concerned about, Joe. I mean, I've been kind of talking about this on the pod. Ronald Acuna, Austin Riley, and Matt Olson are still really struggling. And quite frankly, some of them maybe all of them look kind of lost up there. The old saying is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. However, I still believe that a lineup change or at least a shuffle could probably do them some good. I don't know what that looks like for them because you can probably put them in any order that you want, and they're probably still going to have a chance to win. However, I just bragged on Marcell Ozuna, and I'm probably going to brag on him a little more. I still think he should be hitting in the 3 spot instead of Austin Riley right now, even though he was the hero today. Now, hopefully, that turns his season around, and that brings his confidence back up, and they go out to the West Coast and he pops 4 dingers. That'd be great. Do I think that's likely? Probably not. I would love to see Ozuna hit 3rd, Olsen stay in the 4 hole, Riley hit 5th. Ozzy Albies has been on an absolute tear to start the year. I love watching that guy swing a baseball bat. He's not much bigger than me, but man, he can generate some power with that swing. I don't even want to mention taking Ronald out of the leadoff spot because his OBP is still over right around 400. But man, when it comes to actually swinging a bat right now, he does not look good. He's really struggling up there. He's striking out at basically career averages or worse. So it's rough to watch, but I'd rather them suck right now and figure it out come postseason time instead of going ice cold. But I mean, it's rough to watch, but they're still winning games. They've got the best record in baseball at 19-7, and the starting pitching is doing really well. So overall, there's not a lot to worry about. The bullpen actually looked really, really sharp this week. Just got to get those 3 guys going, at least one of them going, because right now they're just 3 holes. Ozzy, Ozuna, Arcia, d'Arnaud, even Chadwick Tromp here and there has actually contributed, and Jared Kelenic as well sometimes. But overall, they're winning games thanks to the pitching this year. Last year it was all offense for them, but the pitching has actually done well despite Spencer Strider going down. So, what you got next, Joe?
Well, I wanted to talk about the Astros week. Obviously, they got swept by the Cubs to start the week off on Tuesday through Thursday. They lost 7-2 on Tuesday's game, 4-3 on Wednesday's game, and then Thursday's midday game they lost 3-1. And their starting pitching struggles continued on Tuesday and Wednesday, with JP France going on Tuesday and Spencer Arnghetti going on Wednesday. Both pitchers gave up most of their damage in the first inning, which is really disappointing because after that, they pitched pretty well. France gave up 5 in the first, and then he went on to go 4 scoreless after that. It just sucks because, they got down early and their offense wasn't able to claw back. They didn't put a crooked number up on the board at all, only scoring one run in the 4th and 5th inning. So they ended up losing that game 7-2. And the bullpen gave up 1 in the 6th and then 1 in the 8th. But honestly, for as bad as that 5 spot looks in the first, I'm gonna put that game on the offense because once again they left 5 men on base and they were 1 for 4 with runners in scoring position. They continued to not capitalize on getting runners in scoring position. Um, and quite honestly, 5 runs isn't insurmountable. A comparable team should be able to, you know, make their way back into a game after a bad start, but they continue to just fall over themselves, to start the game, and then once they're down, not be able to come back. So that was a little bit of Tuesday's game. And then Wednesday's game, as I mentioned, kind of started off. As I mentioned last week, some of these games are kind of like, I just get deja vu watching them because it almost seems like the same thing happens every day. Starting pitcher goes out there, Spencer Arnghetti, goes out there, gives up a 4 spot, and then he pitches pretty well. For the rest of his outing, he only went 3 2/3, but I think that for him, just adjusting to big league hitting has kind of been his problem. He's gotten a lot of soft contact just fall at the worst times. Um, he gave up 7 hits, but not a lot of those were tattooed. Some of them were just a couple of bloops that just found the hole. So I really think that he's pitched better than what his record or what his ERA shows. I think that he's gotten soft contacted to death by the Royals, and I think that he's been kind of snake bitten with a little bit of soft contact bad luck. But he gives up that 4 spot, and then once again, 4 runs isn't insurmountable. The Astros offense did worse than they did on Tuesday's game, and they left 10 runners on, and they were 1 for 10 with runners in scoring position. Once again, horrible. Altuve had a solo home run, and Bregman had an RBI single. But once again, they should be able. If they were a competent team, they should be able to come back from that because the bullpen and Arrighetti didn't give up a run after the first inning. Um, they had plenty of opportunities. They just couldn't capitalize on it. They out hit the Cubs. They had 10 hits, and they just weren't able to capitalize on anything that the Cubs were giving them. Hector Neris, shout out to him. He got the save after giving up a home run to Altuve in the 9th inning. That was pretty funny, but he was fired up after it. Getting the save against his former team. And then moving to Thursday, that midday game, the Astros lost again. As I mentioned, they got swept. They actually ended up scoring first in the first, but then things kind of fell off. This was Justin Verlander's second start after coming back from the IL. He pitched 4 1/3. He only gave up 3 hits. He had 7 Ks and 4 walks. He looked really good. He had a lot of swing and miss, which was really good to see. And he's looked fantastic since coming back from the IL. So that's always good to see. Hopefully he can keep getting that pitch count up, and be able to extend into games. I believe he reached 90 pitches, or he was 90 plus. With those strikeouts and walks combined, those both kind of factored into a rising pitch count, which was why he was only able to go 4 1/3. And then Rafael Montero came in to clean up Verlander in the fifth, and he pitched an inning. He took the L because he got into some trouble when he came back out for his second inning of work, only getting 1 out. And then Brian Abreu came in and gave up a 2-run home run. And as I was saying last week, if it's not one reliever shitting the bed, it's the other. This time it just so happened to be Brian Abreu's turn. Like I said, pick from a hat. Brian Abreu, Ryan Presley, or Josh Hader. One of them is bound to pitch lights out, and one of the other two are bound to give up a 3-run bomb, 2-run bomb, whatever. So Brian Abreu gives up the 2-run home run. Montero unfortunately had a runner on, and Abreu gave up the home run with an inherited runner, which gave Montero the L. And then Seth Martinez, he's pitched great for the Astros so far. He's been one of the highest leverage relievers, coming in with a lot of runners on base, and those type of situations, and he's pitched fantastically. He's got a 2.4 ERA. He continues to be able to escape jams. So I think that, he's going to be a real factor to, getting us back on track, being able to, kind of escape jams in those tight games in the middle innings. If a pitcher isn't able to, if a starter isn't able to, prolong his start and get into trouble because of a rising pitch count, he's going to be huge coming down the stretch. Hopefully they don't burn him out, for the remainder of the season. But I feel that way about Montero too, because he's also pitched really well. He's had a great bounce back season from last year. He showed signs in the second half of, being that 2022 self after that really rough start in 2023. So it's good to see both of them pitching really well. But it's unfortunate to see Brian Abreu continue to struggle. I was looking at some of his data, his pitch data, and nothing really seems to be different from last year to this year, which is really interesting because usually when you see a pitcher struggle like the way he has after having such a dominant season, you can point to a different type of pitch shape, or a decrease in velocity. But he really hasn't seen that, so it's been interesting to see him struggle. But I'm sure he'll get it turned around. His stuff is so disgusting that I can't imagine that he's going to struggle for very much longer. So to wrap that up, the Astros got swept by the Cubs, and they fell to 7-19, and they would then move on to the Colorado Rockies in Mexico. And then this is where, I hope that the Astros can really work off of this and get their season turned around. Ronel Blanco started on Saturday, and he has continued to pitch phenomenally. He pitched 5 2/3. He gave up 5 hits, 2 runs, 8 Ks, and 2 walks. And honestly, like I mentioned last week, I don't know how sustainable this is for him. But with him pitching the way he's pitched, with Verlander coming back, and with Valdez coming back on Sunday today, if these three can kind of hold it down until you get, Javier back, and then potentially Luis Garcia and Jose Urquidy back, I think they'll be in great shape to really, push past this, first month slow start. And so the Astros really popped off. Jordan had 2 home runs. Tucker had a home run.
They were bombs.
Yeah, they were both bombs. Pena and Yiner chipped in as well. Trey Cabbage, who I'll talk about in a little bit, had his first at bat of the season in the majors. He's kind of started us off with an RBI double, and then Abreu had 2 hits. He also 2 separate hits. He had 2 RBIs, and he is now tied with Jose Altuve for hits with runners in scoring position, which kind of sheds a light on how bad the Astros have been with runners in scoring position. Jose Abreu, getting his first 2 hits of the year with runners in scoring position, is now tied with Jose Altuve for hits with runners in scoring position.
This dude just does enough to not get fired. But
for real. He saw Trey Cabbage come up and hit an RBI double his first at bat, and he said, "Oh shit, I gotta lock in."
Well, and
the Astros
finish what you're talking about, and then we're gonna go into what just happened with the Astros about 3 hours ago. Go ahead.
Yep. So the Astros would win that game, 12-4. They're playing the Rockies, so once again, I'm gonna take this series for what it is. It's a series against a really bad team, which is kind of funny to say because the Astros coming into this series, had the same record as them. But it's a series against a bad team who, before the year started, if you were to tell me the Astros were in this position, coming into this series, that, they would be expected to beat the brakes off of them. But, with the way that they played, it wasn't a given. So it was good to see them really come out and jump on top for this first game. And then for the second game, they won 8-2. They got Framber Valdez back. Today was his first start. He pitched 5 innings, gave up 5 hits, 2 earned runs. He had 6 Ks and no walks, which I'm really happy to say he had no walks, because that had been a struggle for him in the last couple of months of last season, and then kind of to start off this season. So it was really good to see him, command the zone, get those 6 strikeouts, and not give up any walks. So he did only go 5 innings. I believe he got just above 70 pitches. So obviously, he didn't have a rehab start between his last start and his IL stint. So they're going to have to build him back up, but it was good to see him back out there. He looked really good. An environment that could have bode catastrophe for him, with his cutter. He gets a lot of ground balls, but if he's not hitting his spots, those ground balls could turn into fly balls. And in Mexico City, where they were playing at, I believe it was 7,000 feet above sea level, that could have really been a disaster for him. But it was good to see him get a lot of ground ball outs and, look like his old self in an environment that could have otherwise made him look really bad. And then the Astros were 2 for 5 with runners in scoring position. Altuve had a massive home run. Jordan had an RBI. Tucker had a home run again. He homered for back-to-back days. He's looked really good to start off the season. He's probably been the best Astros hitter all around. He's consistently hit decent with runners in scoring position, which is more than I can say for Alvarez, Bregman, and Altuve. And then Yainer had an RBI double, and Pena had a home run as well. So, it was really good and encouraging to see the Astros offense once again go out there and, produce after having a really tough series against the Cubs. So, like I said, it's the Rockies, so I'm cautiously optimistic, but hopefully they can use this, like I was saying at the beginning of the podcast, to turn things around and kind of use this as a stepping stone, as a reset, and officially get the season back on track. I'm hoping that they can go in against the Guardians, and they need sweeps at this point. They can't just win series and think that they're going to hang around. They have to start sweeping teams. So it would be nice to see them, go in back at home, sweep the Guardians, sweep the Mariners, and then kind of put themselves in a better position, within the division against the Mariners, and then, overall.
Yeah.
So, I'm hoping that this isn't just, it was the Rockies and the offense was popping off because of, the elevation. I'm hoping that this is something that they can continue to sustain. When you look at the back of their baseball cards, this should be the norm.
Yeah. Let me share this with you. This came across my Twitter a little while ago. When Framber, Justin Verlander, Christian Javier, and Ronel Blanco, when they've started 14 of the Astros' 28 games. Okay? In those 14 starts, the team is 7-0 with a 1.83 ERA and 83 2/3 innings pitched. Phenomenal. Okay? That looks great. For the first 4 guys in the rotation, it's wonderful. Okay? Here's where it goes south. Other starters' numbers. 0-10 with a 9.49 ERA and 54 innings. That includes Hunter Brown, J.P. Francis, Spencer Arrighetti, and Blair Henley.
Blair Henley. Yep.
Yeah. So right there, between just the starters, you're 7-10. Okay. Now, granted, they have had to rotate out between France and Brown and Arrighetti and Henley because all of these guys have either been out or down. The bullpen, 2-9 on the season, 4.95 ERA,
Yep.
in 107 innings. Okay, and then overall the team ERA is just under 5, and they're 9-19 now. So really and truly, if they can just get the fifth starter spot to where they have an ERA of like 5, and the bullpen can go out and not absolutely blow it, the team is going to be fine. But
Yeah,
it's just
now,
unreal
so
how bad like
I
two subjects have been.
Yeah, so I'm hopeful that we'll see Christian Javier back within the next week or two. It was nothing serious with his neck soreness, but they just felt like they needed to be cautious. He is having such a good season that they can't afford to lose him long term. So I get why they were cautious with his injury. And considering the fact that the division hasn't really um, nobody in the division has really pulled away. I think it was a great move on their part just to make sure that he recovers, for the longevity of the season. So, if you get Verlander, Blanco, Valdez, Javier, and then Garcia, Urquidy, I'm not even going to mention McCullers because there's bound to be a setback somewhere. Um, but if you get him, that pushes JP France into the minors, which he's already in right now. That pushes Hunter Brown into the bullpen, which I think he will thrive in, and possibly Spencer Arringhetti, who I also think could thrive in the bullpen because he has disgusting stuff. And like I said, I think that he's been snake bitten by bad luck. But his stuff is too gross to, you know, for him not to be successful in a one inning stint. Him and Hunter Brown, they both have really good stuff. So you could push out guys like um, Sean Dubin, and really he would be the only guy that you really want to push out because everybody else, for the most part, has pitched good, and you're not going to push out one of Abreu, Presley, or Hader. But I think Brandon Belak is currently on the team. You probably push him out. And maybe you could use Brown or Arrighetti as a long man if one of the key guys, one of the key rotation guys, doesn't give you what you want. So and their stuff is so much better than Belak's that I would have 1,000% more faith in them than I would in Belak. But that's besides the point. So I think that the outlook on this team is great if they can just be consistent offensively, and if their pitching could just stay healthy, get healthy, and stay healthy. I think that they'll be fine over the course of the season, but it is a lot of ifs. But it is what it is. So there was some breaking news that had to deal with the Astros. They don't play again until Tuesday, so this won't be official until Tuesday because they just operate like that. They don't make moves official until the day that they need to be made official. Joey Loperfido has been called up, or will be getting called up to the major leagues, which I find very interesting. The timing of he's hit 13 home runs and I don't know how many at bats in the minors, but he's been tearing the cover off the ball. He's been killing it down there from a power standpoint, which is something that the Astros have been lacking. But I find this really interesting because the Astros had an opportunity to put him on the roster or put an extra position player on the roster going down to Mexico City. And they decided to put Trey Cabbage on the roster instead. Someone who has also had experience at first base and someone who is also versatile enough to play in the outfield. So I found that move very interesting, and I find the move with them putting him on the roster now very interesting. That it kind of makes me believe that someone might be injured. I didn't finish watching the game tonight, so I don't know if maybe Abreu might have tweaked something, on a play near the end of the game or an at bat. I can only imagine that this has to do with an injury and that someone is going on an IL stint. because just the timing of it is so weird. I find it weird that they brought up Trey Cabbage. They gave him one start. He produced when they called his name, and then he didn't really get another look after that. I would have liked to have seen him get maybe a longer look because I believe that his numbers looked a little more sustainable um, down in the minors. He kind of had the same outlook as Loperfido, but his high power guy, but high swing and miss as well. But his numbers were a little better than Loperfido's. So I find it all very fascinating because, like I said, they had the opportunity to do this for the Mexico City series. Instead, they decided to go to Trey Cabbage as the 27th man. They couldn't put a pitcher on due to MLB roster constraints, so it had to be a position player. And they could have picked from Loperfido or Cabbage, and they chose Cabbage. But now, all of a sudden, they're calling up Loperfido just 2 days after um, calling up Trey Cabbage. So I find that very fascinating.
So, Joe, you think that somebody is going on an IL stint? I think that they're going to make the move, and I think somebody's getting either demoted back to AAA like Kessinger, or I think that maybe somebody gets DFA. Do they do that to Singleton? They're not going to do that to Abreu. They owe him too much money. I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to see what the official news says.
Mm-hmm. So I just want to say I also believe that they shouldn't be doing this move unless he is going to get a substantial amount of playing time.
Correct.
I don't think that he can just wallow on the bench. I think that he needs to start seeing major league pitching. He needs to just get it out of the way. He needs to see it so that he can start making the adjustments if they really want him to be successful. And it's there's going to be a lot of pressure on him. Just because of how he's performed in the minors. But not only that, because of the way that the team here in Houston has performed overall. If he is going to play every day, which I again hope he is because he needs those reps. He's going to be put in a lot of pressure-filled situations. This team needs to dig themselves out of a hole, and we've already seen it with a struggling Bregman and a struggling Abreu. The ball is going to find him. The at-bat is going to find him. He's going to be put in big situations. So he cannot just sit on the bench and not see an at-bat for, weeks on it. So, you said that it might be Kessinger or Singleton, but I really believe that it needs to be Abreu. Someone was saying that, Abreu bought himself until July with that 2 RBI game. But, the money is already paid for Abreu. You might as well, just eat the contract and improve your team. Singleton is better than Abreu. I would prefer Singleton in every scenario if I had to choose between him and Abreu. I don't care what that scenario is. So I wouldn't DFA Singleton or option him. I'm not sure if he has any options left.
I don't believe.
So I believe that it would have to. So I believe it would have to be a DFA. And then I think that you need Kessinger's versatility, even though he sucks offensively. He can play almost every infield position. He can play third, second, or short. So I think that if Dubon is going to be playing a bigger role, then you need if he gets injured, you need Kessinger there, in case of an emergency.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if they have the balls to DFA Abreu, but I genuinely do think that it should be him if it is anybody on the roster getting moved out. I mean, it will be somebody, so I believe that it should be him. But like I said, I don't know if they have the balls to do that. we'll see on Tuesday because they are going to wait till the last possible moment to make this move. So it'll be really interesting to see. I'm like I said, I'm really intrigued by the timing of this move, um, and everything that has to go around it.
It's going to be super interesting to see what happens on Tuesday. Um, Last thing before we go, Joe, I said on last week's pod that I would do a little bit of a deep dive into the Yankees' success so far. Um, for those of you that have looked at up to the standings, they're obviously in first place, and Joe talked about that earlier. They're 19-10. They've got a great run differential, and let me just say, one of their big successes on the year so far is how they hit with runners in scoring position. As a team, they are third in Major League Baseball. They hit their 286, 369 OBP, 509 slug. They are mashing baseballs with runners in scoring position. Um, so that's something that Yankees fans can brag on besides their 27 rings, because at least they're doing that right now. And then as far as their pitching staff is actually doing pretty well. They are, I believe, let me pull it up real quick. They are better than a top 10 team in the league in most pitching stats. Because as a team, their ERA is sitting at 301. That's second best in the big leagues, which is incredible. And they've also done really well with their bullpen. Their bullpen has been outstanding. And then even guys like Carlos Rodon, he's pitched well. Nasty Nestor has pitched well. Marcus Stroman has pitched well. They've got a lot of different contributions from a lot of different guys. Clay Holmes has been fantastic. So yeah, I mean, overall, pitching's done pretty well, and they have hit when they've needed to hit. So shout out to them. They've actually done a really nice job so far. Can they keep that up? Maybe. I guess we're gonna find out. But like we said, it's gonna be a dogfight between them and the Orioles, and who knows about the Red Sox? Maybe they just want to play spoiler.
Mm-hmm.
And then also too, I never count out the Rays or um, Toronto too, because Toronto has way more talent than what they're playing like right now. Uh, so I thought that was really interesting, especially how well they've hit with runners in scoring position. Joe, do you have any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Yeah, so I mentioned the Guardians last week. I mentioned how they got off to a really good start. And then I kind of mentioned their schedule. And I still think they're frauds. I don't think that they're going to be able to sustain this start. They've played a lot of weak teams. To start the season, they've played the A's in two different series. They've played the Twins and the White Sox. Both of them are not good. And then they did beat the Mariners in a series. But how much of that has to do with the Mariners' offensive struggles to start the season? They usually tend to heat up in the middle months, like June and July. So like I said, they beat the Twins, not very good. The White Sox, not very good. Obviously, like one of the worst teams in the league. And then they lost a series to the Yankees, I believe, or they tied it. They might have tied the series against the Yankees, if I'm not mistaken. Um, but no, actually they lost that series. Yeah, they straight up lost it. And then they lost the series to Atlanta.
Yeah.
So really, like the three teams that they've played that are real contenders, they've lost series to. Well, at least Atlanta and the Yankees. They beat the Mariners. But I don't know if it's sustainable. Their starting rotation is pretty bad. I think they're shaping up to be one of the worst in the league at the moment. And a lot of that has to do with injuries, but they're just not. They're not winning in the way that we're used to seeing the Guardians win. They're winning in a lot different fashion, and I think that that's kind of unsustainable for them because I just don't know. I know that Naylor and Jose Ramirez have been kind of popping off for them so far to start the season, but I'm not sure, like I said, if that's really sustainable. Their bullpen has pitched really well, but their starting ERA is horrible. Let me see. Let me see if I can pull it up.
Well,
Their starting ERA.
I will say this too is they love to hit little squirters all over the field because I believe they're hitting like over 500 right now on balls in play that are under like 50 or 60 miles an hour, which is obviously not sustainable. You've got to mash baseballs to really keep that up. So just
Okay, so
that is just unreal.
Yeah. So I lied, kind of. Their starting ERA is middle of the road, but I believe it was in the last week or two. I believe it was like in the last couple of weeks. Their starter ERA has been a little inflated, and a lot of that has to do with injuries that they've sustained over the course of the year. So I don't know how well they'll be able to continue to play, but it's just it's interesting to look at. Seeing as how they just got done playing Atlanta and now they're coming back um, to play the Astros starting Tuesday. And then, like I said, like I mentioned the Mariners earlier, their pitching has been dominant. I believe that they are 7-0 when they lead after the sixth inning, which I think is a crazy stat, especially when you look at the Astros and they're 0-6 in one-run games. So it's not the same stat, but it's two very interesting stats that kind of tell the tale of each of their seasons. The Mariners have been dominant, pitching wise, and if they get the lead, I believe they're also like 10-1 when they score first. So that's also a really interesting stat as well. So it'll be important for the Astros to jump ahead early and I would say have a lead in the sixth, but that hasn't always worked out for them so far this season. They have, I believe, the worst run differential in the league when it comes to runs scored after the sixth inning. The Astros have been giving up a ton of runs after the sixth and not scoring a ton of runs after the sixth inning. So two very different stats, but kind of like I said, telling the tale of each of their seasons. So I just want to finish that off because they will be playing each other at the end of the week.
Well, I think my final thought is the Braves walked it off today, which was great to see. Now, here's the problem. They left, I'm sure, as soon as they could after the game today and flew out west to Seattle. They start a set there with Seattle, and then they head south and go to LA and play the Dodgers. So I am really interested to see how that series goes. The Braves more than likely will have 20 wins at that point. The Dodgers will too. So I'm really interested to see how the Braves stack up against the Dodgers this weekend. And especially since the Braves starting pitching has done so well as of late, can they sustain that against a force like the top 4 or 5 guys in the Dodgers order? So with that being said, Joe, I think we've covered everything, haven't we?
Yep, I believe so.
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks everybody for tuning in to the Throwing Partners podcast here with Kirby and Joseph. Remember to follow us on our socials at KirbyD4 and at JAguilar7891. And please like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We would really appreciate it. Oh, and last but not least, Joe, we might have a logo this week. So the pod might look a little bit different as far as our logo. I'm really excited about it. I'm hoping to have some shirts maybe like some kind of stickers or something I can give out. Something simple that people will know, like, hey, this is our pod. Check us out. So once again, everybody, thank you for tuning in. It's Kirby and Joseph here.